Okay, it looks like we're recording now. So, okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching the replay of this call. We are with the amazing mom boss, Ahern, today. She is phenomenal, and I have known, I've probably been following you for, it's probably almost been 3 years now, which is crazy, all the things that have changed in those 3 years. And I have seen her business bloom and change and grow into something really amazing. And I wanted to bring her on today. Whenever I'm thinking of amazing moms that are doing great things in the world, she always comes to mind. And I wanted to make sure that we got her in for a call today. She is also, her team is working on a rebrand for Momentum, a new logo for us. And so we are really excited for that as well. So you'll get to see her awesome talents all over Momentum for a long time to come. But if you are looking for anything to do with branding and being really aligned in your branding, Ash is the one to go to. And she just has so much knowledge on this. And I love all of the stuff that she puts out into the world. So I want her to share a little bit more about her journey of how she kind of started her own business, where she started and where she is today. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let us.
Amazing. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you ladies for having me. It feels really special when I'm connected with somebody for a long time and then they launch something new and they want me involved. And then I get to, it's sort of like a give and take, right? We're always supporting each other in different areas and seasons of our business. So it's, for me, it feels full circle when I get an opportunity to sort of stow back in when somebody's helped me out. And so it really means a lot to be a part of your community, Brooke. So thank you. I think the thing that I want to mention first before I dive into anything is the fact that as a new mom, I started my first business shortly after the birth of my oldest daughter. She is now 9.5. And I was in business before that, but I was working in a completely different industry. I wasn't allowed to be online because of how we were regulated. I was a financial broker. And there was a lot of restrictions and limitations on how I could build my business. So it was very much like cold market, approaching people that I didn't know because I had moved to a city that I wasn't familiar with. I did my degree in a different city and then moved here after because this is where my mom was, and didn't know anybody and really had to figure out how to have a successful business without being connected online. So through that, for the 3 years that I did that before having my first daughter, I was a hustler. Like if you think of the word hustle, I did it. And I think it's because I knew and understood that if I sacrifice now, I could potentially win later. And so I just went all in because I had nothing else really tying me down. I was married, but I wasn't like, I didn't have kids. Like I could just pretty much do whatever. And so I would work like 14-hour days. I would barely sleep. I had a day job. I had a part-time job and I was doing my business in between, like definition of hustle, like sleep when you're dead kind of mentality. And, as a young person, you know, you're 22 years old, that's totally fine. I had the energy for it. I sacrificed my own health a lot of the time, but I knew that like, if I could just get this rolling now, then by the time we start a family, I could really slow down and, you know, I would have a little bit of money coming in. And so I saw it as like a temporary sacrifice that I needed to make. And it just didn't work out that way whatsoever. Like they, you know, everybody thinks that your business can just like pop off the ground in a year and everything is fine. And you can like hustle hard for 6 months or 8 months or 12 months, whatever, until things are rolling. But really when you start with that kind of energy, you end up having to stay in that kind of energy. And it just didn't work well for me at all. So, I call each of my daughters mini recessions because every time they were born for like a full year, I couldn't work after, or like I couldn't work very well. And compared to how I worked before they were born, like everything would just like slump down, our income, everything would come down, my momentum. And so I had to figure out a way that I could work online because I knew I need to be able to basically keep my energy really, really close and precious and only expend the absolute most that I can, you know, manage and really get clear on where I was going to be putting my time and energy. And so I wanted to come online, but in order to do that, I had to be really careful about it, especially as a financial broker. I wasn't able to offer any actual solutions when it comes to implementing products online. So I had to have a very separate kind of business. And so all I knew at the time, or thought I knew at the time, was to do coaching in the financial realm. So I came online as a financial coach, and I just didn't really catch into the groove of things. Like I started networking like I like I had learned offline, I started networking and doing that online using Facebook and Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and direct message and Instagram. Using the exact same methods that I was using offline, but just with the ability to do it in the online space. And I made so many amazing connections, and I really just came to the table with a mindset of value, just deliver what I know, give away my best information, so into the lives and businesses of other people without any expectation of return, and just build really authentic relationships, because I knew and understood from my offline business that it was only really the people that gained my trust and vice versa that would really become my clients long term, that they would be sustainable, and that we'd have this really great working relationship. And that was full of meaning and purpose. Like I didn't want to just like sell things. I never desired to just sell things to people. And it never really resonated with me to like use tactics or strategies really. I just wanted to build relationships with people. So I had gone through so many sales trainings. I did the John Maxwell sales training. I did a program called PSS, which actually I went down to Indianapolis to do, which is Professional Selling Skills Boot Camp. That was a 2-week boot camp. It was intense. So I have my certificate in that. Like I've got all these sales trainings, but I never really tapped into too many of them because they never aligned. I just never felt good about like all of the little like seed planting and all of just different tactics that they use and scarcity and things like that. Right. So as much as I knew I didn't want to use any of it. And for whatever reason, and this was something that was interesting because I'd had hired my first business coach in January of 2017. And this particular coach, he's amazing. His name is Dr. Robert Garcia. When I first started learning from him, the biggest thing that he taught me was that it's all a numbers game when you're first starting. And the amount of people that I was connected to online, you know, I wasn't getting a lot of engagement on my posts or anything, even if they were super valuable, because I just wasn't connected to enough people. So that was one of the first things that he taught me is if you could give away your best knowledge, but if no one's seeing it, because of the way the algorithms work online, like that's not helpful to you. You're putting a ton of time and energy into content creation no one's seeing. So put that aside for now. Don't worry about the content. Just connect with people. And so that's what I did. I just spent about 5 months connecting with people. And I grew my database and my network of people up enough. I think I crossed the threshold of about 3,000 on my personal profile of people that I had connected to, had conversations with, got on quick Zoom calls and things like that to get that number up to that point. And that's when I started finally having people come to me for advice. And they were not asking for money advice. They were asking me for business advice because I had been running a successful offline business for close to 10 years. And that's what they wanted to learn about. It wasn't about really the money. It was the business. How do I find clients? How do I get sales? How do I do all these things? And because I had a business that was doing really well, and actually a few businesses before that too, that's what I naturally slipped into, was doing more business coaching. And then finally, Dr. Garcia was like, you're coaching around business. Like, why don't you just shift your focus to that and put that out into the world that you're doing that, because it's obviously coming natural to you. You know, your clients are getting results from implementing the strategy. So that's what I did. I kind of rebranded myself as a business coach. But I also knew that there was a lot of coaches out there that were just calling themselves coaches, but didn't have any formal training. So I really felt to be in integrity and in alignment with what I wanted to put out there, that I need to get certified as a coach. So then I enrolled in the Radiant Coaches Academy certification program. And Deb Stevens is the CEO and founder of that company. And she is a phenomenal human being. She actually hosted me in her home so that I could attend the 2-week training in Nashville. So I flew from my hometown here in Canada all the way to Nashville to hang out with her for 2 weeks and do the program. And that's just the training piece. And then, of course, you have to qualify and do all your hours and everything. And the biggest thing that I learned from that was that my entire life, I believed this lie that I wasn't a creative person. I don't know where that came from or why I believed that about myself, but I really didn't believe that I had any creativity in me whatsoever. And long before I had my own business, I was hired to work with a national newspaper doing print layout and design. They had sent me to Adobe Boot Camp, and I got my certification in InDesign and print layout and interior architecture. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do, like book design, for example, or newspaper. I actually specialized in print layout for ads in the ad section of the newspaper. But as you know, the newspaper industry is a dying one. And they actually closed down shortly after I did that training, which is really interesting. They still operate in print to paper here, but back then it was like a third of the population of our city used to get the daily newspaper delivered. And now it's like a miserable amount. It's like 30,000 or something, like less than 1%. And so they had to let a lot of people go, and they let me go while I was on mat leave with my first daughter. So that was like, okay, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And so I did my training with Des and Radiant Coaches Academy and realized like I'm a highly creative person. I always have been, because creativity in the way that I understood it was like if you could sculpt or draw or paint or do something like artistic, I suppose, with your hands. But then I came to understand that creativity in the way that it works through my body is I'm very resourceful. I started my first business with no money. I just, leveraged relationships that I had. I asked for help. I just had to get creative and how to, bring things to life. I'm a problem solver. It's kind of like a puzzle for me, and I can't put problems down. Like I have to solve them. I'm kind of like a detective, when it comes to like finding clues and figuring out what's going on and figuring out solutions. So I had all these layers of creativity in me that I just didn't expect or understand before doing my coaches training. So I came out of my coaches training going, holy smokes, like I cannot believe how creative I am and how I've really dampened that side of me for so long. And it's because I endured a lot of failures as a kid and as a young adult, like going to university and studying music and not really able to, live up to the expectations of that creative industry that it is. And so I just believed that I wasn't creative. So a whole new door had opened up for me. And as people were coming to me for business coaching, a lot of the time, I would probably say about half the time, they were like, okay, well, my next step is I need to launch something. I need to get a name together. I need to get a visual identity, a logo, some colors, some fonts going on so I can create some content online. And I was like, well, I know how to do that stuff because I was certified as a designer when I worked for the newspaper 10 years ago. I know how to use Photoshop. I know how to use InDesign. I know how to use Illustrator. So we were like, I didn't have a lot of ideas at the time. So I thought, why don't we just co-create something? I'll open up my software. You kind of give me some imagery and let's just make something together. I mean, I was in full transparency. I wasn't really sure what I was doing, but I said, hey, I don't have any formal training as a logo designer per se, but I know how to use these softwares and I've had training. So if you can give me some visual ideas, like I would love to, see what we can create. And so we would get on these Zoom calls and co-create the most amazing things that I had never seen before in the graphic design industry. And that was what really kickstarted things, because as those pieces of work were going out into the world, the wonderful clients that I had I was very massively undercharging for would share that artwork with the world and tag me and say like, Ash brought this to life. And there was so much traction coming from it because what we were creating was so beautiful and different. And so that's how it happened. And just from those visuals going out into the world, I was getting daily messages from people like, what does it look like to work with you? Could I hire you to do this, that, and the other thing? And truthfully, the only thing that I really knew how to do was interior book design layout at the time. I could do like book cover design. I could do like speaker sheets was something that I always knew how to do because I've been a speaker for like 15 years. So that's what I started doing was just the logo, the color palette, the fonts. And then I was creating like speaker sheets and like book stuff. And that's it. And then I realized to be online as an entrepreneur, there's so many other needs that we have. Like if we want to appear branded and professional, that we would need to have like a Facebook cover and an Instagram template set that we could follow, or, covers for our Pinterest pins, or like whatever platform my clients were on, they needed more things. So I really had to learn quickly how to create a lot of that stuff. And what I think the biggest favor I did to myself was I didn't go looking for how other people were doing things. I just did it how I thought it should look. And so I wasn't inspired or like influenced, I would say, by sort of what the trends were. Like I was just doing what I felt like was in alignment with that client. And so we had ended up making amazing things that didn't look like anything else. Like they really were standing out. And so my second coach that I ended up working with was asking me, and this was Des, ended up asking me some key questions, long after my coaches training about my business and how it was growing. And I guess the biggest thing that we realized was people were coming to me because they wanted something different and in alignment with who they were. They wanted something authentic that wasn't just they hired a designer on 99 Designs and they got the super trendy looking logo. They didn't want that. They wanted something unique to them and they wanted to stand out for who they are. And that was the common thread amongst all the people that I've been helping for about a year and a half. And so I decided that that should be how I focus my energy and my time and my marketing, because that's who I tend to attract anyway. And so it might feel backwards to those of you listening in to like start doing work and then just letting what people need sort of guide what you do. Because most people go and make a decision on what they think they want to offer, and then they go do that. And then it depends on, you know, who they're connected to, if that resonates with their market that they're connected to. Like, I think largely what we're taught in marketing classes and in marketing school is that you need to understand who your ideal client is, what their avatar is, how old they are, the car they drive, all these different things, and then try to get into their heads and then try to create marketing around that. And it's, for me, it feels very manipulative to try to go around the back door that way. Like, why not tune into like who you are and who you naturally connect to and who you're already, you know, having a circle of influence on, and what kinds of needs they have and how you might be able to meet those in your experience. And so I did a lot of business coaching and a lot of branding around that. And now we have this amazing team. We're looking at building a physical space. The plan is to break ground in spring here in Calgary. And the team, like, we don't just do branding anymore. Like, we do a lot of other things because we were just listening to what our clients said they needed. So sometimes they needed websites. Sometimes they needed like materials, like ebooks or worksheets and things like that for courses. We do courses as well. YouTube video editing, like whatever you could think of as an online entrepreneur that you could possibly need, we create, because that's our client and that's what they need. And so we just match that need by creating, and we do mostly co-creation with our clients. So we'll get on a Zoom call, talk about it, and we'll just design it together. Because when they're involved, their energy comes through, their intention comes through, their personality comes through. It becomes so much more of an authentic experience versus I'm just going to go make something for you or buy something off Creative Market and hand it over to you with your colors and fonts on it. You know, it's a different experience. And I think that's why it does so well. That was very long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, that was so perfect. And it's exactly why I love what you do, and why we asked you guys to do the logo too, because for us, like, there's so many logo people out there, and, you know, we're all about it. One, we wanted a mom-owned business, of course. Yeah. And then also just that we're doing business in a different way. We are creating a tech startup, but in our own way. And we want to make sure that we're always staying aligned to who we are and why we started this. And I kind of came to my ideal client a different way as well. I just kept realizing that I was connecting with moms because that's what I was going through. And moms were coming to me for business advice, and moms were asking for, you know, other things. And that's just kind of what I ended up creating as well over time. So I totally understand how that works, but that's not how it's always taught. It's like you pick your thing, you do it, and you just do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just not always the way that it works out well. And it definitely worked out differently for you. So I'm so excited for you and all the expansion that's happening for your business. That is super exciting. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about you were talking about the co-creation, but what are some things that you look at when you're first looking at a client and they come to you? Kind of what are those first few questions that you're really asking of somebody that is coming to you for a brand?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think how we do that is very different than any other experience I've had. What's very interesting is that my roommate, when I was in college, was a graphic designer, and she did a lot of photography and painting as well. Highly, highly creative person. And I had her creating all my brands for me before I did my own for like 10 years. Like, she probably did 3 or 4 different versions of my branding. She did my expansion project branding, like all that stuff, because I wasn't believing that I was creative yet. When I was hiring her. And then finally one day, I told her, because I called her and said, I think this is the direction I need to be going in, and just know that, like, I'm not trying to compete with you or anything like that. Like, I'm being called to that, and I'm meeting people where they are, and they're finding me online, and and she was like, girl, what we do is so completely different. So what she specializes in is corporate identities, and she is largely housed in the city of Saskatoon. And she mostly does corporate companies, and she does product packaging, and they have a very different kind of business model than what we're doing. And she's not online at all, like not even a little bit. So she was like, have at her, girl. Like, I'm your biggest fan and I will always support you if you ever need anything. And so she was the one that helped me with establishing my pricing when I was first getting going. Like, how much do I charge to help people with their identity, and how much do I, right? So she was integral with that. And she is actually a really amazing company out of Saskatoon. It's called Ficus Creates. You should definitely check her out. If you are making a physical product and you need packaging for it, she's your girl, because that's probably not something that I would ever sort of dive into, because our clientele is largely, emerging influencers and online entrepreneurs that are providing a service. So we're not doing a lot of product packaging. So she would be your go-to. But one of the things that I asked her is like, I want to be really streamlined and effective in the way that I'm onboarding clients, because there's certain questions that we need to ask. And she said, yeah, here's the questionnaire that we use. Right. So I'm going through her questionnaire and I'm like, ooh, these questions just don't really apply to my market. Like, they're very corporate-y, like in the sense that like, who's your top 5 competitors and like these kind of things. And I felt like that language doesn't resonate with me. I needed to create my own way of doing this. And I needed to figure out, how do I tap in now to, because I'm a very spiritual person. And when I combined my spiritual side with my business side about 3 years ago was when things really took off for me, because I really kept them separate for my entire career. And when I realized that I was really closing myself off to people and they didn't really know the full version of me, that I had a harder time connecting with people and building my business. So I finally just tossed all that aside. I said I was going to, combine the spiritual and the business sides of me into one person. Like, I'm not going to be 2 people. I want to be the one person that is all the things. And it's difficult for women to sometimes do that, because we tend to be multi-passionate, and the world tells us that if we are a jack of all trades, we can be the master of none. But I don't think that that's how women are made. Like, I think we're designed to be multi-passionate for a purpose, because we need flow and we need creative injection and we need to be able to shift focus sometimes. Like, we need kind of more than one thing going on. So I decided to combine those 2 elements. And when I did, I realized that some of the work that I had been doing with people was largely about how to communicate who they are, not what they do, not necessarily who they are on the outside, but like their spirit. Like, how do I communicate their spirit and their branding? How do I do that? And so I launched a beta last spring where I just asked, I tried not to do more than 4 or 5, but ended up doing like 7 or 8 because there was just so much demand for it. So I said I wanted to test a few things out on some people who would be willing and who are open spiritually for me to try this out on them, who needed a brand identity. So the package was to do their logo and their color palettes and their fonts and stuff. We would create a visual identity for them through the process. And I experimented on using different questions on different people to see what would come out. So I did this for about 6 or 7 months, where I just experimented with a few clients and really allowed them to also participate and give me feedback during the process. And then that's how I developed the Brand Anchors exercise. So this is a free guidebook you can get right on my website. It's like the first thing you see, ahern.com. It's the download that you can get right there. It's delivered by Facebook Messenger bots. If you don't have Messenger, you'll have a hard time getting it. So if you need a copy and you're not on Messenger, like, reach out to Brooke or reach out to me. I can send you a copy on email or something. But that exercise is a series of questions that I worked through with different beta testers to really, how do I get to the core essence of a person? And I try not to use too much emotive language, because it can become a little bit too flighty and disconnected. Like, we need to be grounded and connected this way. So think of it as like a tree growing up and down at the same time, right? So that's how I've formulated the questions. And those core questions are literally the root or the anchor for your entire brand identity. So every single question, we narrow down to a root word, and that root word becomes one of the anchor points. And we end up with 7 of them. The reason why I chose the number 7 is because for me, there's a spiritual meaning behind the number 7 being the number of completion. So there's wholeness in the number of 7. And so there's 7 anchors, and each of the anchors end up with a visual. So we create or find some sort of imagery to represent that word. They become the basis of your mood board. Your colors come out of the mood board. And all of your graphic elements and things that we decide to create for your brand come out of the imagery that's found in your mood board. So some people end up with water features, or a lot of trees, or mountains, flowers, and it's not always nature. Like, sometimes people are attracted to contrast, or they might be attracted to a specific texture. So sometimes we see a lot of textures coming through, like golds or silvers or other kinds of textures. And then there's just a lot of things. Like, I had a client one time who in every single image ended up with a hand. Like, I don't know why the hand was in every image. We didn't intend to do that, but I'm a very trusting person and I always allow myself to just surrender in the process. So the fact that we ended up with 7 images, all featuring hands, meant there has to be a hand. I mean, if there's not in the logo, it needs to be in the imagery somewhere. We have to use a hand. And so we're always looking back to that mood board and back to those anchor points when we build everything. So they become the manifesto, not just for your business, but for your life, because the root words have a ton of meaning. And it's connected to your story. It's connected to who you are. It's connected to your experience. It's connected to your values. There's so many questions that we ask that really narrow it down into this point, so that literally you have a guiding set of keywords that can be your guiding point for everything. Anytime there's an opportunity for a new business partner, you're re-looking back at your anchors. Are they in alignment with your anchors? Yes or no? Right? New offering, new service, new pricing, new everything that you want to add into your business or your life. New partner, right? Maybe it's a new experience. Maybe it's a new workout. Maybe it's a new trainer, right? It's a new program, a new course you want to buy. Check your anchors. Is it in alignment? Right? So this is why we call it the aligned design process, because if you're not in alignment with those anchors at all times, then you're out of alignment and you're going to end up with just more issues and more complications in your business. So it's so far beyond branding. I mean, that's how we use it, but it can be really, really big for you in your life.
For sure. No, and I love that. I think that a lot of disruption is going to continue to come with the branding, with just everything in online business, because of the fact that more women are stepping up and realizing that we can do things differently, we can be successful with it, and it's okay to do it differently than what we were told before. And so I love that you are taking what you intuitively felt were aligned with, and you're saying, forget it, I'm going to do the way that I think that well, and your clients are naturally going to continue to come. The reason why we were attracted to you and to get you to come on this call, and also to do stuff with our branding, because I don't want it to be the same as what everybody else has done. And I wanted to make sure that those elements are taken into consideration. So we love that. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up, but I just have one more question for you. I know that you have a lot coming down the pipeline over the next little bit, breaking ground and everything potentially for a really big business. So what do you see for yourself in the next 5 years?
Oh my goodness. I mean, to think 5 years out for me feels big and far away and almost intangible, because I forget who said it, but basically we overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in 10 or something like that. So whenever I think of like what I think I can do in a year, I go big and I think really big. And then I never like allow myself to go that big 5 years out. So I'll do my best. But honestly, in 5 years, I really see, because we're planning on breaking ground and building our physical space next year, it'll probably largely take like the whole year for that to complete. And then, so we'll be about like 4 years into our new space. And I know that there's only really growth to go from where we are, because we are sort of a grassroots startup. Like my team literally comes to my house and like we co-work here, and like there's no space for us to be in right now. And we're largely like a little mini digital agency, because we have, providers from all different kinds of parts of the world that, participate and, bring products and services and things like that to life for our clients. So like, we're kind of like this little global sort of industry little global company that's kind of like connected all over. But in 5 years time, like I envision us being in our space, and yeah, we still have global clients, but like I'm able to fly people in. Like, I don't know if you guys follow, her name's not coming to me now. She does Instagram marketing. Alexis. Who am I thinking of that does the Instagram marketing, Jess? You know who I'm talking about, right? That she's like so bubbly and amazing, and it's not coming to me. But what she did for her new brand shoot when she launched was she lives in somewhere crazy. It's like Peru or something crazy like that. But she flew into New York to go to this space where they basically set up the set, right? So it's all branded to her. They curate the entire set. They do all of her video work, all of her photo stuff. They have a stylist that works with her. So that's largely a part of my vision when we create our new space, is not just branding, but styling, photo, video. We have, podcast rooms that are soundproofed, music studio, theater for events, boardrooms, co-work spaces. We want to have like a gym and a wellness area, ready rooms, like that kind of thing for every single one of our, participating members that can come and use the space. And so I see that being, I don't know what it looks like when we first start and how much membership we'll have. Like maybe we'll end up with 50 in our first year or something like that. But in 5 years, it could be in the thousands. I have no idea. And I had a quick interview on a podcast last week with a coach from LA, and I was telling him off the record, like not on the recording, about the space and what we were looking to accomplish. And he's like, well, we need one of those down here. I'm like, what? LA? Like I didn't think about building one in LA. So who knows, in 5 years, we could have our established building here, and then we're starting to expand to other major cities and come down into the US and, have a Mecca lab down there as well.
Yes, I think that is wonderful, and I can totally see you doing that. So I think that's a wonderful 5-year plan, and Stephanie just messaged me saying that we will come and do one of those for our brand when you're ready. So I love that, and just kind of that one-stop shop to get everything done that you need for your brand to have a fully aligned brand and get launched on whatever you're launching at the time, and then coming back to you as a repeat client for something, the next project that you need. I think that's wonderful. And I can totally see you landing in LA and all over the United States and anywhere else that people want to go and see you. So I think it's wonderful. Tell us, last question, I promise, but what is the vision behind the name for your new location? I've been wanting to ask, so where did that come from?
Well, what's fascinating is I knew that we needed to rebrand if we're going to have a physical space, because we couldn't call the building Ahern Align Design. Like I'm not pretentious like that. Like I have a lot of clients that have physical buildings that are named after them. Like I have this really amazing client who has a furniture store downtown, and it's literally his name is the name of the furniture store. And that's fine because he has a reputation. He's been around for 30 years. Like people know him now. So he's got his little, shop or whatever, and he imports stuff from Europe and all these really amazing places. And I couldn't ever envision having a physical building with my name on it. Like it's just not what I'm about. I'm more about building community and having it not really be all about me, but just be about like everybody else, like how we operate together as a team and as a community of moms and entrepreneurs and all these things. So I knew that we were going to need a rebrand, and I had no idea what the name was going to be. So we basically just like compiled the team together and just started throwing out like, those good old school marketing meetings where just like every idea, bad or good, like you just put it all out on the table. And so it was like a full day, I think we spent just on the name. Maybe it was 2 days. I can't remember now. But basically we just like threw all the names out, and marketing meetings are interesting because some of them at first you're just like, oh, I don't know about that or whatever. And you just kind of throw it away. And then sometimes you come back to it with a different perspective or a different light. So for whatever reason, the name Mecca just it got thrown out sort of into the meeting, and we didn't really stick on it for too long. We were kind of working through a whole bunch of ideas, but I kept coming back to me in the back of my head. Like I thought that was a really good name. I think it was Kendra that came, like kind of found it first and brought it to the meeting. And so this idea of Mecca at first, we weren't sure because it is also a city. And it's a gathering place, a religious gathering place. So obviously we didn't want to skew too many lines and do too many things. But when I thought of the word Mecca after the fact, I wasn't really thinking of the city. I was thinking more of like, Mecca is the hub, right? Where people gather and they do things together for a common reason. And so for me, the word Mecca more sort of described our space and how we intended it to be used, that we would gather together to do things for a common purpose. And I'm a huge advocate for businesses with purpose, or businesses that they have not necessarily a nonprofit arm, but that they are looking to have positive impact on the world. And so I just felt like there was a lot of really great alignment with the name and what it stands for, And so we threw a few more ideas after that, but I couldn't let go of it. I kept coming back to it. And so I think this is the name that we need to go with. So I'm super glad that she, tossed that name out, and that we had a couple discussions about it before deciding to move forward. And then of course we got all excited and wanted to create an identity for it right away. Because, starting a new business, like you need to hurry up and grab your domain names, and you need to have all your social networks, secured and all that stuff. So like literally once we decided, it was like go, like same day, we just went and grabbed all of the assets that we would need for online. And I'm super, super happy about it. We're technically incorporated here in Alberta now. So the name is ours.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just been a lot of fun. And yeah, we're just super blessed and honored to bring it to the world.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to see what is to come for Mecca. Please keep us posted. And we will also link all of Ash's information to all of her wonderful places you can find her, including what she mentioned with the Facebook Messenger bot, where you can get that download from her. We will have all of her information in the email that you'll receive with this replay. And you can also reach out to her if you have any questions. And if you want any branding done, because she's really awesome, obviously.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ash, for your time today. And we look forward to just seeing everything with your business keep blooming and all the wonderful people you're going to help. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Have a good day, Ash.